In this video, I'd like to look at Flexisplit. Flexisplit can be applied to columns of stitching, both column A and column B, which create flexible width columns, and column C, which creates columns of a constant width. The result is slightly different because of the flex nature of the tools. Both give great effects to shapes, particularly borders, perhaps around multi-decoration designs, which are to be printed and stitched to a garment, or just to add an interesting border around a design. Notice Flexisplit turns around the corners as opposed to Program Split, which is generally applied to larger areas of fill, which I'll deal with in another video. Okay, let's have a look at the properties of this Flexisplit. I have open and all selected my input A, input B and my column C tools. This is my Stitch Effects toolbar, and the icon that turns on your Flexisplit is here. So as I had them all selected and I selected the tool, they've all applied the same Flexisplit. Now you can, and it's the arrowhead one, you can select from dozens of different shapes, but I've selected the arrowhead because it probably best demonstrates what the properties are. Okay, so I'll select the first one, and this is obviously this is the size of the pattern, the split pattern in the design, and this is the spacing of the columns. Okay, so if we work further down, we should look at these settings first. So there's two sets here, if you like. The first icon will make a single row of the arrowhead, and it won't fit to the width of the column. So this arrowhead is a constant width for the total length in each case. If I select the second option, it'll make a single row, but it will fit. So it'll reduce the size of the arrowhead proportionally to the width of the column of stitching. So if I select my input B, you'll see that it's narrower at either end of that shape. Now column C is a tool that creates a constant column width. So when I select the second option, it makes no difference because there is no variation in the width of the column. Okay, so the second set of options is to make multiple rows and not fit. So you can see there are two rows of arrowheads at the top here, but as it gets to the bottom there's only one because the arrow hasn't reduced in size. If I select the second option, so multi-row but fit the arrows will reduce in size as the column gets narrower. Okay, and again we'll make multi arrowheads, but there's no effect because the column is the same width for the entire length of the object. Okay, so let's come back to our first selection, and I'll just have one set of arrowheads running down the middle, and let's change the size. I'll zoom into it. Let's change the size of the arrowhead and see what results we get. First of all, I've unlocked the little lock, and I'll make our X size, say 10 millimeters. So what we're getting is a longer arrow, but the width or the Y size remained the same. If we have a look down here at our spacing, our column spacing, so the columns run vertically, if we widen that spacing out to about the same width as the X size, so let's say try 9, you'll see that there is more room for the arrows to spread out, so we get a properly formed arrow. If I make that spacing too wide, you'll end up with long satin stitches in the pattern, which if the column is no wider than 8 or 9 millimeters, that's fine. If it's wider than that, that could create an issue for you. So what we'll do there is I would just reduce the size of the spacing so that we've got the satin stitches broken because the pattern comes closer to the one in front and behind. Okay. So come back to the indent setting. That changes the distance or the indent from the end of the column. So let's change that to say 4. And you can see the arrowheads come closer to the end of the column. So have fun with this. There's heaps and heaps of patterns you can choose from. There's one other setting here too, the offset. that changes the angle at which the pattern hits the column. So if you want it to run straight down the middle, have your offset set at 0. Let's see what happens if we make it, if it can go to 90. Okay, so you'll just have to play with those settings to get that effect if that's what you're after, but I suspect that 0 offset is what most people are going to be after. So I hope that's helped, and in the next video we'll look at program split as opposed to Flexisplit. Thanks for watching.